We're now moving on to the annual memorial lecture. This is our third memorial lecture, and they're given each year in connection with previous winners of the Sir Colin Spedding Award, and you've got details about this in your programme. Jim Green was last year's winner, but he was unable to be with us last year to receive his award as he was away in America, actually in University of California in Davis. And therefore Professor Joss Slater, who is here, received the award on his behalf, and he did it very well. But I'm delighted that Jim is here now, and he's now going to give his lecture on equine emergency rescue, managing risk and meeting societal needs. Jim, over to you.
Thank you. Your Royal Highness, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real privilege to be here with you today to give you a bit of an oversight really as to the journey that we've taken in regard to the emergency response to equines in rescue situations. And I'm going to touch on three areas today. Firstly, the drivers for change. Secondly, the current situation. And thirdly, moving on to the future challenges for the initiative. Now, I'm really pleased as an emergency responder that a lot of the talk today has been around risk, because that's the sort of stuff that I deal with on a daily basis. And it's operational risk that really led us to change the way that we responded to animal incidents in the UK Fire and Rescue Service. It was spoken earlier about how many people these days do not have a natural affinity with horses, they don't have contact with horses, they haven't grown up with horses. And I think it's fair to say that historically we got away with managing animal rescues because many of our rural firefighters came from an agricultural background. That's not the case these days. And so there's more and more chance of them becoming injured through something that is actually quite an unpredictable hazardous material to deal with. And there's very few situations in the fire service these days that we wouldn't have the skills and the knowledge and the procedures to actually resolve. But animal rescues was one of those situations where we were still going out, you know, with the big red toolbox and a bunch of firefighters to help the lady or the gentleman with their horse. And we were very much relying on advice from the vet or from the member of the public to get that situation resolved. And clearly, in these days of health and safety, it's important that we prepare our employees to deal with the risks that they're going to face in their operational lives. So that risk is not just about the emergency responders being at risk, it's also about the risks to the owner, to members of the wider public in the situations we're dealing with, and to the horse itself. Secondly, I think another driver was welfare. Now, we might have gone out historically and done the very best we could, but I think through our recent years and our now better understanding of these situations and how to deal with them, I think that actually the outcomes might have not been in the best interest of the horse. You know, spending hours trying to get the big heavy object out of the bog or out of the cattle grid or out of the trailer crash doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a good outcome. And I think to be better, have a better professional approach to this is going to be in the best interest of welfare. And thirdly, something that the vet school in California that I've been working for the last year, their strapline was around meeting societal needs. And I think that's a really important thing, that this equine rescue initiative is about managing risk. It's also about meeting societal needs. This human-animal bond is really an important factor to consider at rescues. This is why members of the public will put themselves at risk in order to save animals. And it's important for us as emergency responders to understand that firstly there's an expectation that we will help, but secondly, if we can't, then that leaves a void and other people will try and fill that void and they will put themselves at risk, and that is something that is really unacceptable. So there are a number of reasons why we've had to change over the last few years, and really we've understood that if we're going to rescue animals in a professional manner and we're going to consider them as a casualty-centred rescue, then this needs to be a partnership. And it was back in 2007, the British Horse Society and the British Equine Vets Association released some protocols, emergency services protocols, and that was supported by Her Royal Highness, and we launched those protocols at Buckingham Palace. And since that time, the journey has taken us primarily it was about the Fire and Rescue Service, People were calling for firefighters to be better prepared and have better planning and understanding, but we also understand that this is a partnership. This is about an awareness of animal incidents by all agencies that are going to be involved. There needs to be role-specific training for those organisations, and there needs to be tactical knowledge applied here, because some of these situations are very complex and very dynamic, and they require a good degree of command and control, a good degree of expertise and professional conversation around what the outcome is going to be. The veterinary and rescue and trauma care side of this is really important, and Professor Josh Slater and I set up BARTA, the British Animal Rescue and Trauma Care Association, in 2012, largely to respond to the fact that we needed an umbrella organisation as this was a growing initiative. But one of the focuses of BARTA is around helping veterinarians to be better prepared so that they can interact with us at the multi-agency scene. Surrounding this needs to be policies and governance in our organisations, and again BARTA is going to be leading that drive to maintain the standards and to ensure that the vision is carried through. Now, I'm really proud of the fact that in the last 10 years, 90% of the UK's fire and rescue services now have an animal rescue component. It's not a statutory duty, it's all about risk, and we have identified that this is a risk we need to respond to. That is really, really good. But what we do know now is that every situation that we might attend as emergency responders may have the presence of animals which will change the dynamics, will change the risks, and change the way that we deal with it. So that will bring additional challenges, and we have policies and procedures for all the different incident types we go to, but as soon as you introduce animals into the mix, everything changes. And so what we've done recently is we've developed National Occupational Standards for the Fire and Rescue Service, and this is around preparing and planning for incidents involving animals. Animals are a cross-cutter. They cut across all disciplines and all operations. So if I go to a car crash and there's a dog in the car, if we try to support the casualty, the dog may be fearful or may try and protect the owner, and firefighters are getting injured. If I go to a house fire and there are animals there, then that has a bearing on the activities of the fire crews, who are quite happy to kick down doors and go into a 1,000-degree fire, but they're not quite so happy when they've got a dog on the end of their arm. You know, so that's something that I will have to deal with in my organisation. Planning for the unwanted event is not really just for the emergency services. It really does apply to all of us in the industry. And it was really good to see that the racing industry and the eventing communities are looking at risk and managing risks. But in Australia, they've really embraced the incident management protocols that we've developed through the UK Fire and Rescue Service. And they are now developing a variety of different approaches to managing incidents at shows and events. And it may be something as simple at the local show as managing a deceased horse with dignity. And then as they grow bigger in their event, it may be that they have teams that are available to respond, to deal with the recumbent animal, and to manage that situation really effectively. Right up to the really larger events like the Olympics, where they have hospitals on site. So, you know, all of the principles that we've applied in the emergency situation, they're directly relating into these type of events. So it's not just about emergency response. As I said just now, veterinary responders are critical to the safe resolution of a large animal rescue. There's not many incidents that I go to as a firefighter where I'm really reliant on someone from another organisation or agency to manage the risk for me. There's certain things that we can do as firefighters and first responders around calming the scene, creating a safe scene, but we are really reliant on our vets who are going to turn up and give us the chemical control often that we're going to need to actually manage our casualty safely. And we have partnerships now with the veterinary associations to deliver training to vets, and we have different levels of training depending on whether they're vet students or practitioners. And it's quite interesting, really, when you think about 1 minute the veterinary practitioner is working through their day's call, the day's jobs, and the next minute they're part of a multi-agency response to a large incident, which requires a great degree of teamwork, a degree of knowledge of their role, their specific role in that incident, And they need to understand how we as first responders apply the incident command system and manage dynamic and complex situations. So we do have different levels of veterinary training. This is an evolving process, and we are very much on a journey and are growing in our understanding. Now, other agencies that we've been working with over the last little while include Highways England. Highways England traffic officers deal with around 4,500 animal incidents on the strategic road network every year. And this costs the economy somewhere around £8.5 million from the highway, the freeways being held up for animal incidents. And we've been working with the Horse Trust to standardise our training in respect of the understanding of horse behaviour, horse psychology, and how to interact with those animals and how to understand whether that is something that they can intervene and deal with, or whether they need to call in further resources to help them. We've now trained 900 highways officers throughout the United Kingdom through our partnership with the Horse Trust. And we're really pleased that that is going to continue, and that the foundation courses that they run are going to include animal behaviour. This will include scene management, risk awareness, other species, all contained in the bigger package. But the equines are a really important face-to-face piece of training that they need to have. We've also trained the Household Cavalry and the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery. Working to the same standards is really important for all agencies, so that we can seamlessly interact wherever we are in the country. And we're very passionate about education, and we've done some fire safety conferences with the British Horse Society. It's a real passion of mine, and we would just say that, you know, failing to plan is planning to fail, effectively. And why are we passionate about it as first responders, emergency responders? Well, most people live in the 99%. And what I mean by that is that most of the time, nothing bad's going to happen to you. You didn't get up this morning thinking that something was going to go wrong. You were all thinking about getting here today and having a nice time and learning. Okay? But me as an emergency responder and some of my colleagues here, every morning we get up, we anticipate that we may have to deal with the 1%, which is the day where the tragedy occurs to somebody and their lives are changed forever. Okay, we live and we plan for that 1%. So that means that the way that we want to communicate our passion and our vision for safety is probably different to the audience and the people that are receiving that message. So, as people have talked about today, we need to find ways of changing behaviours so that this becomes a normal pattern of behaviour, and people then really do understand that it could happen to them. That enables successes. Such as our friend Spencer here. If we're all working together, if we understand what we need to do, we are going to have successes like Spencer. He was being driven to an event. His leg went down through the floor of his lorry as they pulled in, and this is the situation where his leg had gone down underneath the lorry and between the back wheels. And working with our veterinary colleagues, we anaesthetised Spencer, and we were able to extract him and to recover him. And despite how bad that looks, we actually had a viable horse at the end of it. Other successes like this 10-horse crash. This is a polo team that hit on a major trunk road, and we had 10 horses on board in various states of disrepair, 7 of which were viable as a rescue, and 7 were rescued and continued their lives. So it really is important that all agencies that attend these types of situations understand the requirements and the needs. We're sharing this worldwide. As we said, I've been to the United States recently and working with the University of California, and I was involved with the severe fires in Northern California last September. And what was really important about that year, despite the fact that this is a very strong academic environment and they have real successes and a lot of prowess in that regard, they chose in their endowment report from the veterinary perspective to highlight the fact that they'd saved horses through the work of this British firefighter coming over to enhance their capabilities in response to emergencies. So that for me was a really important thing. And challenges going forwards. Well, first of all, we've got financial challenges in the Fire and Rescue Service and other agencies. So that means that we're going to see a reduced investment, and that means that we're going to see less progress, potentially. I've been in the full-time animal rescue manager's role for 10 years. That role is no longer there. So that has a big effect on me and the amount of work that I can do. we're going to see increasing wide-scale incidents such as flooding in the UK. That means there's pressure on responders, pressure on the economy. The Farm Animal Welfare Committee, I contributed to some research they were doing for an opinion paper to government in 2012, where they showed that there was a lack of capability in regards of livestock disasters and emergencies in the UK. And so we as a fire and rescue service have been gearing up, but that was largely for the single animal incident, not necessarily the wider scale event. And so if we want sustainability to maintain the vision and develop the standards, we want the opportunities to innovate and develop, we need to work as a team. We need to have a partnership. And BARTA really want to take a role in that as the hub and have everybody else as stakeholders that are supporting that innovation and development. And so we really would encourage you to get involved with BARTA. And so lastly, I'd just like to say thank you so much to you all for the award that I received last year. It meant a lot. I wasn't here to receive it. I was training firefighters, but where I was in America, that was something that they really thought was special, and they were really thinking about you guys having the meeting last year and that award as it was given out. And thank you to Josh for receiving it on my behalf. And so with your support, we will keep going and we will develop this to the next level. And for my colleague with his heavy horses, this was one of the Budweiser Clydesdales. And we all, the firefighters in America, in UC Davis, had to stop because the Budweiser Clydesdales often came to the university and they were really quite special, so we had to stop our training to go and greet them. And so yeah, that was me with one of the Clydesdales. So yeah, any questions?
Any questions for Jim? Or are you all content? That was a really interesting. Yeah, there. Yep, it's all right, we spotted you.
Thank you. I live on the East Coast, and we have, over the years, rescued several horses that go into ditches, mostly because they're greeding, trying to eat the reeds. So I wholeheartedly thank you for all your work in training local people to rescue horses in a proper manner. But what I'm thinking with the news of people like yourselves losing the funding, do you think it's a time where, rather like the first responders for first aid on site, that it's a time where equine professionals can step up and be trained by people like yourselves to be equine first responders in emergency situations?
Yeah, thank you. That's a really valid point, and certainly my time in America showed me that the volunteer aspect of emergencies and disasters was a really important factor, something that I will bring back to the work that we're doing here. But on a day-to-day level, I think it's really important that there is an awareness of people that certainly work with animals and are responsible for animals, that they know what to do if things go wrong, and there are certain key things that you can do to resolve a situation. I suppose the skill is in knowing where your capacity ends and where you need to have other professionals to help you, because what we don't want people to do is to put themselves in a position of danger because they didn't have the resources to do something. So yeah, we've just been doing some training. One of my colleagues went up to Bransby, where they have just taken some equine medical suspension harnesses and given training in manual manipulation techniques and use of the harnesses, and that's something that the Horse Trust have been doing with local firefighters at their site, and there's no reason why we can't expand that. And in the same way that we're providing practical training for vets and for veterinary nurses, I think it's really important that we look certainly at professionals that are managing horses on a daily basis to see what level of training would be appropriate. So thank you for that.
Any other thoughts, comments? Great. Well, thank you very much, Jim. Many congratulations for winning.
Probably the most shocking thing was that it was like a graveyard with the walking dead.
They had so many lice on them that we had to do a full body clip to get rid of all the parasites before we could even start treating them.
The scale of it seemed enormous.
I think it opened the eyes of many members of the British public who hadn't seen animal cruelty before.